So this principle of like women kind of making climbing more accessible for other women and other people who feel like they don't really fit in is a really key point of why we want to help help more women start setting. It really will help the entire industry to do so. And women are going to be better at different things than maybe men are, or different body types are going to be better at different things. And so if you have a bigger population of people that are setting, then you have more different body types to choose from. And this stays true as you go up the grade. So, a woman's first climb V8, if you get to V8, it might be like a really thin, crimpy one, and a man's first V8 might be a thuggy, powerful climb. So it's just kind of these differences that are generalizations, but also are kind of like, I don't know if they're true, but they're cliches for a reason. Anyway, so setting is really fun, and by joining setting, you can help bring more women in setting, also help women feel more legitimate in the space of climbing and climbing gyms. Let's see where we are. Yep. So in gyms, route setting used to be like, it started out with rocks and then gluing rocks onto walls, and then turned into people were making colorful plastic and marking it with tape, and then it turned into hold color and hold design. So here's the gym, the spot that I worked at for a long time. It's a kind of an old style gym. We have a weird hold selection. The holds are all different colors. They don't really go together stylistically. We want to set a lot of density, so we use tape still, but it looks kind of messy. And for people that aren't really climbers, it may not be very inviting because they're just going to be confused. So there's reasons to do this, and some centers have both. They have like a dense wall or tape wall, and they'll have other walls that are more open. So as things are changing, people are kind of leaning towards this more clean look in climbing gyms. But to do that, you have to have a lot more space. And so part of what setters are thinking is like how to balance the look of the climbs and the amount of space you need and how much you can fit in the gym. So here's a climb that uses a ton of space, was obviously very expensive for the holds, but it is very visually appealing. So this would create kind of a feeling of fun just by being on the wall in the gym. And so there's like a balance of setters making stuff like this that should be accessible or is fun to look at and want to try, and then stuff that just kind of fulfills the needs of the climbing base. So if you come to the gym, you can find enough stuff to do in your session. Most of the climbing public, if they were asked to explain why a climb looks fun, they don't really get it. They just think it looks fun. And it's because the holds are big and appealing. And like this climb, it doesn't look easy, but it looks like maybe you could do some of the moves or figure it out. It doesn't look impossible, especially at the parts of the bottom where there's kind of big holds and there's big feet. So climbers don't have to understand why that looks fun, but the setters do. And you have to use intention when you're planning stuff like this to make sure that the gym is kind of doing everything it needs to be doing. And that's a big part of the setting job that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. So form. It looks like this climb looks like you should be able to climb it, but I don't know if anybody would get the beta exactly accurate if they were just to say, here's how this climb would go. So setters can set stuff like that and figure it out in testing and kind of create it as fun. They still need to make it a good climb before they leave it on the wall. Another example of like something that's sort of aesthetically pleasing is this big feature here that's kind of put towards the point in the wall. So now we've created a feature on the wall that's aesthetically appealing in a similar way to how an outdoor rock might be appealing because of the form of it or the features of it. This increases the feel of quality in the facility overall, whether they consciously realize it or not. So here's an example of a gym in the US. It's a brand new gym. Well, it was 2 years ago, and their initial set. So the holds are all the same color and the same style in the problems. You can see that there's a variety of difficulties represented here. It's pretty densely set, like there's quite a few problems on the wall, but it's still cleaner than the picture of the spot. It looks fun and it looks appealing. So this is a nice balance of kind of getting enough on the wall and still having stuff for everybody to do and having to be visually appealing. The only problem is that this is pretty expensive to create because there's a lot of big holds on the wall here, a lot of expensive holds. So for a gym to do this, they have to have a pretty good hold budget. But gyms are understanding how important this is. And so that's becoming a more normal thing in gyms as a hold budget. And as a setter, holds are basically your tools. And then, yeah, back to function. So the climbs still have to climb well. If they don't climb well, it's not worth having them on the wall. You can have interesting, weird moves that still count as climbing well, but you don't want to have things that are uncomfortable in a way that like could cause somebody to get injured. People can get on a climb. Like if you go outdoors climbing, You might try a boulder 10 or 15 times in a session. That'd be kind of a lot potentially. In a gym, you could try it 15 times in 20 minutes, and people will. They don't have the same kind of approach to indoor climbing. And so you're getting a lot more volume. So if you do set like a tweaky, painful move or something that's like fine but questionable, people are more likely to potentially get injured on it. So as a setter, you want to make sure the problem functions in a way that is good for the climbing community that's using it. And then you can use your setting to teach people how to climb better. So when you go to a gym, you look for climbs that look fun, and maybe you look for climbs that either suit something you're good at or something you want to learn to be good at. This is your vocabulary of movement. And so another word for that is muscle engrams, which some of you may be familiar with. This is me trying to explain it in 2016 at WCS. Muscle engrams are this theory that like your brain can learn a move and then your body knows it. So once your body knows it, it's more automatic for you. You have to use less energy and less effort to do that move. So that's why you can learn moves on a climb and then they get easier and easier. You get stronger, but also your body just fires correctly. So it makes the climb more efficient for you. When you're setting, you get to control that a lot more, right? You can be like, oh, what if I turn this foot just a little bit and then I can, change my elbow position. So you can play with movement, and you can also take a movement and quickly adapt it into moves that are variations that you didn't know, and now you learn them and you learn them faster. So you can just do a lot more volume of move learning and learning muscle engrams through route setting. This book, Performance Rock Climbing, was huge for me. And this is what I'm kind of referencing with muscle engrams. Udo has continued studying movement. He has a really excellent YouTube channel. He has an excellent Instagram, Udini. He has another book, The Art and Science of Bouldering. So he has been a national team coach and he really studies movement. And he's a great person to keep an eye on if you're interested in movement and route setting, because he thinks about it a lot. And he will show a lot of side-by-side videos of climbers and comps and things that could show you how people's bodies work differently and what choices people make. And stuff like that is the stuff that if you want to be a route setter, it's good to nerd out on, because then you start to understand a lot more about movement, which is kind of what your job is creating and teaching movement. So climbing has infinite possibilities. You're not doing the same 4 moves over and over again. You can literally make the smallest change and it changes things about how your body works through the move. The more moves you know, the easier it is to adapt to similar moves. And yeah, again, setting, you can learn how to do a style of move and then adapt that to a bunch of different other variations of that move. So it makes you a better climber faster. And I've seen this over and over where somebody that's a pretty good climber or a very good climber becomes a route setter, and their base level of their pyramid of climbing ability just moves up because they're doing so much more volume and they're learning so much more that with the strength they have, they're able to really improve at climbing, which is cool. And you also have a different experience in the gym because you understand a lot more about what setters are thinking. So, and this is what I was saying before, more walls, more holds, more climbing ability, more ability to manipulate the climbing experience is creating a rapid learning curve. So people are improving a lot faster than they used to be. And I think this is largely due to volume and our ability to manipulate our environment, and then also exposure to what people are doing around the world. So because of social media, because we can watch Udo's channel, we can all learn what maybe only a few people in Germany would have seen 10 years ago, which helps us because then once you learn it, then you can expand from it. So what is route rating? Route rating is when you look at a climb, figure out what you're supposed to do. So most of us have probably either route read all the time or have at least tried it. Some people have never heard of route rating. Basically, you want to make a plan for what you're going to do on the climb. And then if there are unknowns, like you don't really know how good that hold is, or you don't know if you're going to move your feet after you grab it or before, or maybe you're going to skip a hold, you just make kind of like plan B and plan C and just have all that in your head. And that way, when you get to that point in the climb, your body has ideas about what to do, and you don't have to waste time hanging on trying to figure out what to do. You can look for clues on the wall. Why are the footholds there? Probably the setters didn't leave footholds for no reason. So there's a reason. Maybe it's to walk your feet through. Maybe that one's only for short people. Maybe that one's super crucial. And if you don't put your foot on it, you cannot do the next move. And you're going to learn that by falling off. So looking for clues and then knowing your body and your skills and being able to decide what could work for you in that space. And then climbing with friends and watching friends is also helpful because by watching what their body does, you'll start to understand more about movement in general and also have an idea about what you can do compared to them. This makes you a lot more efficient as a climber, and it's very important for a route setter. So what are setters thinking? Like we were just saying, there's a specific sequence that setters are planning when they're setting a climb. There are some climbs that are like very basic, maybe they're jug calls and there isn't a huge sequence, like you can kind of go whatever order you want. But this is kind of like, if you're climbing at a climb that would be moderate to challenging for you, it's very important for you to figure out what you're supposed to do. Find the good beta, find the good sequence, and then when you climb it that way, it's the easiest way the climb can be done, and you're rewarded for finding the beta by being able to do the problem, or by learning a new move you didn't know how to do before that helps you do the problem. When you have a gym that has bad route setting, there's two possibilities. One is that the setter or setters in the gym are not bad setters, but they think totally differently from you. Their bodies are totally differently from yours, and it just does not suit you. If that's true, you'll adapt to it after climbing that gym a little bit and start to find it fun. The other possibility is that the setters didn't test the problem enough, or they don't understand how it works, and so it's just not a good climb. So there's setters who are all tall and they just have trouble figuring out what feet are needed for short people, and that's frustrating for especially women climbing in gyms. That happens a lot. But it's also possible that they just don't, I don't know if I should say they don't care. I'm sure that they care, but they don't understand kind of intricacies of movement to understand why certain moves are really uncomfortable, potentially dangerous, super scary in a way that's unpleasant, things like that. Those are bad problems that make you not want to climb that problem and make you not want to climb in that gym. So we want to make sure that we only create good problems, or that the majority of the problems in the gym will feel like good problems to any given customer. And so setters have to endeavor to constantly be learning to try to understand what's happening with their climbers in their gym and kind of try to make the climbs more appealing or appropriate for those climbers. So we forerun, we test the climbs, we say forerun, you guys say testing, I think. And then we change the climbs. So we go, okay, like that move, Lily's way too stretched out. We're going to add some feet for short people. They're not going to change the sequence for tall people, but they're going to be there so she can have an equal experience. We're going to say, okay, this move is really scary at the top of this climb, and the climb's V3, but the hardest move is, 15 feet off the deck and it's going sideways. It's not really appropriate for climbers of that grade. So testing, especially in a group, helps you identify problems and fix them. So then when the customers are exposed to the problems, they can have a better experience. In comps, it's really important because your problems in comps are for a purpose. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the end, or a little later. And so when you're testing, you want to make sure you're testing climbers of different sizes and abilities, so you have an idea of how a spread of climbers will be able to perform on the problem, or what experience they're going to have on the problem. And this includes climbers of different strengths. And so here's women's WCS. We did a clinic before the 2016 symposium, and we're just forerunning each other's problems. So while forerunning, somebody's climbing, everyone else is watching, and everybody from that is determining, okay, this is, in this case, this is me. This is what Jackie did on this climb. Maybe the route setter had wanted me to do something different. We try to figure out if that's reasonable. If it is, how we change the climb to make that happen. If it's not reasonable, we decide how to make the climb good. We also try to decide what grade is needed. So we should have a chart that says what grades we need, and we say, is this appropriate for this grade, etc. And then with this climb, which is worth pointing out, you can see there's a very big hold sticking off the wall near the bottom, and the wall is slabby. It's actually, I think it's vertical or slightly slabby. You guys are probably more familiar with this wall than I am. So that's a fall hazard. That could be a fall hazard when you have a big hold sticking out near the low on the wall. But after climbing this climb, we determined that the way you would fall off it, because it's an overhanging corner on the other side, you fall out. And so that doesn't feel like a hazard. So we identified that the problem works. There shouldn't be extra dangerous falls. I mean, you can get hurt, walking to the store, but we don't have any extra kind of things that lead you into taking a dangerous fall. And it's grade appropriate. And so anybody watching might notice something that I as a climber don't notice, and that's part of the reason we all pay attention. And then we work together to fix the climb or change the climb until it is appropriate, and then it's good to go. So that big red hold on the I don't know if you can see my mouse, but the big red hold there, that's one of the holds from my company. If that were at the bottom of the slab sticking out, I'd be anxious about it, because it's a really great hold, but in some places it's not appropriate to use a hold like that for safety reasons. Not that you can make a gym safe, but you can do your best. So who can be a route setter? And this is, anyone can be a route setter. The number one thing is that you want to learn about movement. You want to expand your mind. You want to figure out what you can experiment with. You want to keep thinking about this stuff. You're not just trying to do a job and put holes in the wall so people can climb them. You actually care about what you're doing, and you're interested in it. And then you're also willing to deal with the less pleasant aspects of the job, which are, it's a physical job. You move stuff around a lot. You have to work with tools. You need to wear PPE. It's untidy. It's uncomfortable sometimes. It's dirty a lot of the time. It can be very frustrating. Interpersonal can be very difficult because climbing is such a personal thing that people can get really defensive really quickly about both their climbs and other people's climbs, just their moves. And so learning to be really open-minded is very helpful with route setting, and it's a constant process. There are literally phases of setting that you go through that after you've been setting longer, you see people go through earlier in their setting careers. One of them is, it's my art, which is, this is my product that I made, and I understand it and nobody understands it. And the thing about setting for a gym is, or a comp, it's your art when you're making the bones, but then it's a product, and it's everybody's product, and everybody has to work together to make that a good product for the gym. So it's no longer about you. You got to work on your idea. Sometimes everybody can work together to make your weird idea work. Sometimes it's better to just call it and make it something that's a good product for customers, and try again if you want to explore a movement that you don't quite understand. And having a group of people looking at it can help, because people have different perspectives, and that can help you solve moves you don't quite understand. And then if you do want to decide, like you decide to leave something a little weird up, customers are going to have problems with, then you want to take steps to help customers understand the climb. Because a lot of times, if people don't like something, it's because they either can't do it or they can't do it at the grade they expect to be able to do it at. But if you can help them maybe learn something themselves, unlock a move they don't know, they can actually get really psyched. And then they'll share that with other people, which just kind of creates this good feeling in the whole gym. So yeah, but you have to be resilient to deal with all that. You cannot have a fit and stalk off if somebody adds a foot or takes a foot off your climb or whatever. Also, this is a generalization, but it's also not. Setters just basically stand around and talk nonsense while setting. It's usually pretty funny. Sometimes it's inappropriate. Our industry is changing a lot, and that's good. And I think that the conversations are going to get more appropriate, at least interpersonally, which is good. But it is kind of a construction site. And then the other thing is that customers have a lot of thoughts, and a lot of their thoughts aren't super educated. So they don't understand, for example, why they don't like that red climb. They think it's a bad climb. Really, they don't like it because they either don't understand the movement or because they think it should be easier for them at the grade. So helping customers through that is a big part of being a route setter, because you are a face of the gym. So you're helping interface with your customers at the gym. You don't have to do it, but it's gyms that have that good relationship between their setters and their customers tend to be more successful, in my experience. Because otherwise customers feel like they don't have any voice and they're frustrated, and then they just say kind of flippant things like, oh, the setting sucks, when really they would really like the setting if they could learn from it, and they might need a little help to just get over the hump to understand and to trust the setters. The setters do know what they're doing, and if something seems extra challenging, it's a good challenge for them that they can learn from, not somebody doing a bad job. But to do that, the setters have to actually be creating a good thing for them to learn from. So that's where it falls back on route setters to want to continue learning. So yeah, you get compliments and you get complaints. So, and this is my friend Allie. She's awesome. She is wrestling a ladder. So ladders have skis on them. The pads are really squishy. It's not that big of a deal. It's manageable, but it's kind of just one more thing you have to deal with for the job that some people just aren't into, and the rest of us are. Okay, so number one reason women tell me they should not route set is that they are not strong enough. I'm not that strong, and I've climbed fairly hard outside, but in climbing gyms, I definitely have never climbed harder than like V7 or maybe V8 like once. I just won't try hard enough on plastic. And also for my job, I don't need to do that. So when I was competing, the level is just different than it is now. And, for me, I'm more of an outdoor climber for my personal climbing, and setting for me is about learning and experimentation. So anyways, but beyond that, I'll get to a slide in a minute, you don't even have to be able to climb V6 or V7 to be an effective route setter. Because if you think about a gym population, there's people of all different sizes and abilities and strengths that are in the climbing gym. And so your job as a setter is to serve those people. So you don't have to be able to climb V10 on the drop of a hat to serve most of your gym population. What you need to be able to do is look at those people, understand what they need, help them learn about climbing, and understand how to set stuff that's going to help them have a good experience. So yes, in the pecking order in a climbing gym, often the strong climbers get extra value for their skill. Well, it's seen as skill. They get extra value for being strong. Strength represents a greater form of ability. Technique is seen as something anyone can learn. I don't think that's totally accurate, but that's what happens. It gets reinforced because you get kind of strong climbers that have poor technique and able to kind of thug their way up some things. Back in like the 80s and 90s, people were really focused on climbing very well. And in fact, if you didn't climb with good style, you might as well have not climbed something. That is not how it is anymore. Now it's most people are just, can you do it or not? There's a lot of swinging around, which is its own style. Things like footwork are still valued by some people, but not the way that they used to be, I would say. Also, like slab climbing is interesting, but to most people, it's not as interesting as overhanging thuggy climbing. So kind of the look of things doesn't value the same technical ability that you used to. But those are really good skills to have. And for comps, climbers have to have those abilities because they do encounter climbs like that. So you got to be strong. You don't have to be that strong. You have to be technically capable and also understand what you're doing. And strong climbers aren't necessarily good route setters. And in a lot of cases, if strong climbers are interested in climbing strong, they might be terrible route setters because they're so strong they can't understand what experience anybody else is having. So maybe they could set a good V10 and that's absolutely it. They can't set anything below that, and they can't really set above that because they don't climb harder than that. So you end up with this like small window of them setting for themselves, and they're not a good route setter for a gym or for a comp because they don't understand other people. So that brings us to the types of route setting, competition, and commercial, or commercial and competition. Commercial is what we've been talking about, setting for gyms. So you work every week generally, and you set for the user base of the climbing gym, the climbing population. You want to create a good spread of styles across each difficulty, so a climber can show up, warm up, find stuff to work out on, find stuff to project, and see progress over time. So a commercial route setter should be able to do that. So they see the big picture. They create good products in individual routes. They look out for safety issues, and they're efficient at doing their job. So a good gym product, like we've been saying, it's a fun climb, or it's interesting, it's challenging for the target grade customer, and it's relatively safe. So we don't say safe generally I know I've said it a couple times, we do not ever officially say safe in a climbing gym. You cannot guarantee safety in a climbing gym. People can get hurt walking off the mats. People can get hurt walking. But relatively safe is that you have looked at a climb, you've evaluated possible risks, and then tried to ameliorate the risks if they're inappropriate for the climbing level. So like the blue climb I was climbing in the picture, fall, we realized the fall was not going to make you interact with the big hold on the wall. So that wasn't a problem, and we didn't have to worry about it. If there were a V0 going up the wall right above that big hold, then we would be concerned because a V0 climber could fall off and then hit that on the way down. So you need to think big picture when you're looking at a gym. And then also risk decision making is if the climber is able to decide if they should take a minor risk or not. And so at lower levels, people don't have a skill base to make those choices at all. In moderate levels, people have some experience and they might know something scary, or they might think, oh, I could fall sideways here, and then decide not to try a certain move if they're too tired. But as a setter, you want to try to make as many of those decisions for customers as you can up to a certain level. So you're helping your customers stay healthy, because if your customers are introduced to the ability to hurt themselves, whether it's falling another hold or falling funny or jumping to a 2-finger pocket over and over again that's too hard for the grade, if they get hurt, they may not come back. They certainly won't come back for a while, and they may not ever come back. And so gyms need to make a product that encourages their customers to come back and helps them progress. And then they also need to have a variety so gym climbers don't get bored, and also they can learn. So here is what I was trying to say about strength. This is from The Spot, which is the gym I worked at forever, and then Sarah took over after me. This is our grade spread. So do you need to be super strong to route set? The majority of the climbs in the gym are beginner climbs and moderate climbs. Most of what needs to be set and forerun in the gym is essentially up to V4. It's up to V6, but even up to V4 is completely appropriate. That's a big chunk of the work that you're doing is in that range. And that work needs to be done every single week because those climbers need new climbs as much as the V10 climbers need new climbs. Well, they don't because they can keep working on harder stuff, but you need to have stuff in every grade that's fresh because if a V4 climber has climbed all the V4s and the V5s are still kind of too hard for them and maybe they're projecting them, they still need more V4s to succeed on. And that kind of goes all the way down. So this is a gym in Boulder, Colorado, which is a center of climbing like Sheffield, and like some of the cities where some of the others of you live in the world, where there's a lot of strong climbers in Boulder. And this is what the gym grade spread looks like, and this is appropriate. This is not, Daniel Woods will come in and climb at the gym. He isn't coming and get bored. Like we have plenty of stuff for those people to work out. They can always climb in a board if they do run out of new boulders that week. And then we have plenty of stuff for everybody else. So now I've gone and messed this up. Okay. Sorry, I just moved my Zoom thing and it got unhappy. Let's try that. Okay. So we talked about setting needs by grade just now with that chart. Setting needs by style are a little harder to pin down, but basically you just want to have variety in a grade range. And so having setters of different sizes and abilities automatically creates some of that variety because there's stuff that's going to appeal to those different setters naturally, and help them set climbs that naturally are appealing to their user group. And then if you have a mix of different setters, that creates a big variety just automatically. People can try to set outside of their style, but it's easier to set in your style. So you can throw up a few more climbs and check them off the sheet. And now we have climbs for a 5'2", woman. And then we also have climbs for a 6'2" string bean. So that's why variety is helpful. And then holds and volume variety is helpful as well. Like we were looking at that previous picture, they're tools. Holds and volumes are tools. They feel like presents, but they're tools. And you need them to do your job. And then, so setting for people that are not you is athletic empathy. Learning from watching other people, watching for your customers, what they say to you, but more watching them because people are not accurate self-reporters. Learning what moves are like for different sizes and using that knowledge to improve your product. So watch your customers climb your climbs, see what experience they're having, watch other setters climb them. People really, really don't know why they don't like things sometimes. And a lot of times it's literally adding one push foot would make a difference, even though they're complaining about the handholds or something. So watching helps. You start to learn to visualize these climbers climbing when you're not watching them. So as you're setting, you think, oh, what would Joan think of this? What would Paul think of this? What experience is he going to have? Or is she going to have? Or are the youth team kids going to have on this problem? Is this appropriate? So sometimes like a lot of us haven't been climbing as much as normal because of the closures right now. So all of our internal kind of grades are going to be off, right? So you can use objective criteria to help you understand how hard things are. So you can say, oh, well, that climb doesn't feel too hard, but those holds are definitely V4 holds. Like a climber that's working on V4 would have a lot of trouble with those holds. So the climb's at least V4. Or like maybe the moves aren't so bad, but the holds aren't so bad, but the moves are kind of hard. So the moves are at least V4. So you cannot give that climb a V3, even if it doesn't feel that bad, because you have V4 criteria in the climb. So it's at least V4. It could be V5. So it's good when you're trying to grade to use these objective criteria to help yourself kind of come back to level if you're confused. It's good to get multiple opinions. It's good to use objective criteria. And then it's also good if you're setting boulders to teach people things to only add one new factor at a time. So V3 moves with V4 holds could be an intro level V4. V5 moves with V3 holds could be an intro level V5, etc. So you can kind of use this stuff to try to craft and understand the experience that other people are having and then be more accurate to that. Because if you sandbag everything, people get upset. And so if you make everything too soft, they secretly like it, but they say they're upset because they like want things to be harder. So you have to continue to kind of find the balance and get back to the balance, and objective criteria can help. Athletic empathy can help. I used to visualize specific climbers from the gym on problems or routes just to go back and check. Okay, this is probably a V4, and then I would think about certain people and be like, actually, like for this person, there's no way. So actually it's probably a hard V4 or an easy V5. So we'll pop it up a grade. All these tools help us do better at our job. So practicing empathy, I'm not trying to bash men at all. I love working with men, and I've worked with a lot of really great men who are great route setters. It's a little harder for strong young men to understand what beginner climbers are going through and what smaller climbers and what women are going through. It's just harder for them. They're not trying to be jerks. They just cannot get, while doing full moves between big jugs, is not V0. I mean, it can be, but it rarely is, because those moves themselves are hard. And so you, as a probably one or two women on your team, are often going to be faced with being kind of a loud voice to defend certain categories of customer that aren't maybe getting enough attention. And it's tempting when that's happening to just shut up and let other people decide, especially if they're stronger than you, but or even more experienced. But if you are paying a lot of attention to the climbers you're trying to serve, you may be more qualified to judge those climbs and those grades and the difference between V2 and V3 than the other climbers on your team are. And you can watch afterwards, watch your customers come in and climb on it and see if you were right. And if you were wrong, learn from that. And if you were right, try to help them learn from that. So you're working together to make a better end product for your gym. And that's just a constant thing. Okay, let's see. I don't know why my computer keeps doing that. Okay, so there are physiological differences. I'm just using male and female terminology here because of physiological differences from birth, but I'm not trying to offend anybody who doesn't feel that they fit into these traditional categories. I think everybody can kind of figure out where they fit, like their style. And there's some women who are way more like upper body strong as well. Or, there's a mix of possibilities here, but I'm using the terms men and women just as generalizations here. So hopefully nobody's too offended by this. Women and men are built physiologically different. When you have female customers, it's good to have female setters, and all gyms have female customers. It's like 50% or something at this point, or getting close. So all setters should be able to set for all genders, but more different genders of setting will give more variety in the natural styles of the climbs. So, and women and men are going to learn to climb a little differently. Generally, men have more upper body strength, women have more kind of technique. And so with women setting climbs in these lower grades, it will help these women get into climbing, other women get into climbing, and expand the climbing community of women and everybody. This was at 2016 WCS again. At the time, this was probably the most women who'd ever worked together in route setting in one place that I had ever heard of. And I think there was like 10 of us. Now there's been a lot more, but this was a big deal. So other things women are good at, a lot of hip and ankle and foot flexibility, doing high perches, resting by sitting on your foot, things like that seem maybe natural to us. A lot of men will have trouble with. They don't have the hip flexibility in their hips and legs. They can't just rock over their heel and stand up easily because it just doesn't work with how their body wants to move. So you can test this by standing, like I said, a half meter, a foot from the wall or so, and see how high you can touch your foot. Just stand facing the wall and kick your foot up. Somebody had me do this when I was a young route setter, and it was bemoaning the fact that customers were having trouble with the easy move on one of my climbs. And so I was subjected to this test and realized that I can get my foot a lot higher, and I'm not very flexible, but I can get my foot a lot higher on the wall when I'm standing close to it due to how I'm built than any of the men at the gym were. So stuff like that will help you practice empathy as well for the things that you're naturally good at and may not understand or are challenging for other climbers. Which is why when you forerun, you want to have other people climb your climb first. You can see what they do, and then you climb it. And if everybody in the group thinks it's harder than you do, you should defer to them generally, because it's probably something that suits you if you set it. And so that's like a good check for yourself. Most people begin by setting things that suit them. And that's usually what suits their strength or is fun for them. So again, you get guys doing a lot of big, powerful moves, jumps, pinches, and slopers. It's easier for them to campus. That's great. For women, we often like to stand on our feet, and we're often comfortable in smaller handholds as well. And so we're going to kind of gravitate towards different styles of climbing, which is totally fine. Women also, as this is changing, but in my experience, women are not super psyched on like dangerous moves or like big moves that could lead to weird falls. Again, this is changing. You see it in a lot of comps. Women's problems and men's problems have coordination, multi-move sequences for all genders. And gyms are setting like this as well. People are trying these climbs. And so this is starting to, I'm not going to say it's going to equalize, but it's starting to balance out more. So, it's good to set these kind of climbs for all levels of physical ability and all levels of emotional comfort. So you can set really fun, like V2s with big holds on low angle walls that women and men will both enjoy. Let's see. I keep losing here it is. Okay, so this brings us to comp setting. So I just put this wall closure notice from the first year of Woman Up, I think, up. This was setting one of the open qualifiers. So comp setting, red point comps and onsite comps. With comp problems, you want to form them very well because your problems in a comp are all there for a purpose. So you have a mixed size field, you have a mixed ability field, and then you have to somehow get people into first, second, third. And that may be 1 3-hour red point round, and it may be 3 rounds of onsite problems. And it has to, look good for the spectators, at least in finals. So especially for onsite problems, you have to do this job right, or you want to do your best. And if the problems are too hard, you can't just set something hard because it's not fun to watch or compete on. So it has to be really dialed in. So this is red point round of Woman Up. As you can see, there's climbers of different abilities represented here. The first picture, we have, a girl climbing on a pretty crimpy thing, and then the person to her left is climbing on a big volume problem. Well, not big volumes, but little volumes. And then behind her, there's, somebody climbing up a slab, and then there's a little girl on an overhanging jug haul, and then there's somebody who looks like she's climbing like maybe a V4 at the bottom right screen. So you have all these climbers in the gym at the same time. They've got 3 or 4 hours to climb as much as they want. They can watch each other, they can learn from each other, but you still want to try to have the problems ordered as close as you can to like easiest to hardest. So as a route setter, you want to make sure you have variety of styles. You want to make sure you have ascending difficulty through the comp. And you want to make sure that people will have fun no matter what size or ability they are if they've come to your event. So that's a red point comp. It's sort of easier. It's not easier, but it's sort of easier because you could if somebody doesn't like a boulder, they have 70 other problems to choose from. They can just skip it. And it's fun because you can space the problems out and you can set, kind of novelty problems like comps, and it's totally appropriate. Onsite comps are comps where people have 3 minutes or 4 minutes to climb the boulder. So they come out, they look at it, they got 4 minutes to do it, then they sit down for 4 minutes, and then they have 4 minutes to do the next boulder, etc. So there's a lot more pressure, and there's different formats, but that's basically what it is. There's a lot of pressure. The climbers have to climb the climb in a certain order because they're either graded by hold or they're graded by zone. But the climbers need to kind of stay in the order. If they skip part of the problem in a red point comp, it's only about sending or not sending, so it doesn't really matter. In an onsite round, skipping a hold and getting scored for a higher hold, even if they fall off and weren't going to succeed that way, can still put them ahead of somebody who was climbing the correct sequence and fell off right before that. So you want to make sure that kind of stuff doesn't happen. The IFSC used zone scoring, which is basically zone holds, which are like mini tops through the boulder. So if you get to a zone hold, no matter how you got there, you get that point. That's helpful. But it's also helpful if the problem is just well tested. So the sequence is what people are climbing. They can do the sequence or they can't, and that's that. It's easier to judge, it's more effective, and it looks right. So here is a slide that is shifted to the left. Onsite round of finals of the World Cup in Toronto in 2015. So there's pink tape for the start, hands and feet. So onsite problems are prescribed the entire way through. You start like this. Then you have only the pink problems in the volumes. And then you have the blue holds you can see are zone holds. So, or they're called bonus in this case. If you get that, you get 5 points or whatever the bonus point is for that. And then if you control the finish, which is also marked in pink, then you get the final points for the boulder. That's like a World Cup style. This is a Women Up 2018. So we used the American zone scoring style, which has it can have up to 3 zone holds per problem. So this boulder, with finals, you want the round to kind of go through, often showcase different styles. So somebody doesn't win just because they're the tallest. For example, like Chloe here, who's obviously the tallest. So this problem is centered around looking cool for the crowd. This is problem number 2. We didn't necessarily have to have it separate everybody. We wanted it to be something exciting to watch. So you start out to the left where you can't see, and then paddle off of the first purple hole in the picture and catch the second one, the big horn. So it was a cool dyno, and it was like precise, and people were falling off trying it, and that was cool. And then once they did that, we wanted to have them have a good chance of getting through the rest of the problem. If they were strong enough, but we also wanted it to like be fun for people to watch. So it's pretty basic. It's just a few thuggy moves and you're done. But there's really only one way to get through this problem. The concern that we had was if people went straight up from where she is right here to the left-hand undercling up there. And so we just kept turning it down to make it steeper. So going straight up to that and then trying to stand up would be really hard. And the hold to the right is pretty big and not so bad. So they're strongly encouraged to do the climb the way that we wanted them to do the climb. It required some power, but certainly skipping was going to be way harder than doing it correctly, and maybe even impossible. I mean, we kept turning that thing down to make it really hard to get a hold of. And so in comp climbing, you spend a lot, or in onsite comp setting, you spend a lot of time evaluating situations and making these small changes. So now people are going, wait a minute, does that mean that you're rigging the comp? Are you guiding the climbers to do a certain thing? You know what's going to happen, or you want a certain person to win. We don't want a certain person to win. We want the best climber to win, but we want to give people a kind of set group of things they have to do to win. So we're trying to predict what people are going to be able to do given their time constraints, the crowd, like things that are distracting them, if they're tired, if they haven't eaten anything, they don't know the problem sequences. So we need to help them both be challenged by that and be guided by that so they can have some success and there's a good overall show in the comp. If you mess up and make a problem misleading where everybody naturally thinks, oh, I'm going to try to do this one move and the move is not what you're supposed to do and it doesn't work, then they'll just fall off that move for 5 minutes and then the next climber will too. And then we've all seen that happen in comps. It's not fun to watch. So you want to both challenge people and guide people when you're setting onsite comp. And then you also try to look at the group if they're a known entity or even a loosely known entity and say, okay, our climbers are going to be able to climb V6 to V9 in this final. And we have 6 of them. We want the final one. We want the V6 climber to get somewhere. We want final one to get at least 4 people to the top. So let's try to guess, at a climb that will do that. And then we want the V6 climber to get to the 3rd zone hold. So let's make sure it's no harder than V6 to the 3rd zone hold or whatever. And you keep doing that with the whole field. So you have a rough idea. Okay, 4 climbers top 1, 3 climbers top 2, 2 climbers top number 3, and 1 climber tops the final hold or whatever. But then people are still going to get zones. This went away. So yeah, and then how can you predict performance? You can't. It's an educated guess. You just have to do your best. And it's better to do your best early in the week when you're fresher, because if you start trying to make those decisions at the end of the week when you're tired, you'll make mistakes. In my experience, trusting your previous self is better for comps. So you get as much information you can about who is in the field. So, if you have someone super tall or super short, you make sure that you watch the qualifier round, so you have an idea of how those climbers are performing around this time. Maybe somebody's having a really bad week or is out of shape or is sick or something. So somebody you would normally expect to perform a certain way isn't going to at all. And that can change kind of who you're looking at to be the top climbers in finals. And that may matter for putting on a good show, because it's not that cool when everybody falls off the first move and then one person flashes them all either. Or when everybody flashes them all, which has also happened in a big comp I've seen and was not a setter for. I'd like to just point that out. Anyway, so you want the best climber, the person that performs the best in finals across a range of different types of problems to win the round. So just as an example, 2018 Women Up, Alex Johnson, who had been a comp champion and hadn't been competing as much, she was pretty frustrated, but she had won World Cups internationally and in the US. She had a few frustrating years. She'd been climbing outside more. She wasn't competing as much, and she started to think she might want to compete again. So she came to Women Up in LA. We did have some separation in final 3. Some of those competitors finished final 4. So when Alex came into final 4, she has to flash it or she's not going to win. And then I have a video of her trying it. You can see the number 5 first zone hold right there. The holds look big, but they're not that easy, which is nice for a comp problem. And then you can see the feet outright are very big. Second zone hold. So the feet are big to help them guide them to they're really going to have to use their feet to hold their weight in this part. The wall's pretty overhanging, so those big feet are really important. That hold, you can see she bumped her hand to the left. It's better to the left than it was in the middle, so they had to get it with some control. And everybody just lost their minds, basically, which was cool. Yeah, she almost fell off, but she didn't. And that's one of those things about comps that makes them really, really fun. All right, I'm just going to pause it because I couldn't crop it. So yeah, she won. Everybody was so psyched. It was just so cool to see her return to comp climbing, how psyched she was. And also for us that it worked out because, you know, Alex had been climbing. There was some separation on problem 3, but she'd been climbing the best that day in qualifiers and in finals. And so if we had made a big mistake that caused her to totally fail on problem 4, where someone else had flashed it, maybe it was just her, but maybe we didn't do the best job for some reason. Like if the feet were really scrunchy, so for a short climber, they were more comfortable, and for a tall climber, it made her just pushed out from the wall too far. That would have been a mistake on our part. We wanted to be separate but equal. And part of the reason we use those really big footholds was so climbers of different heights still had good purchase on the feet and could kind of move around those handholds. And those are the kind of things you think about when you're setting any comp. And it's super nerdy. And after our questions portion, I have an extra part about nerdy comp stuff if people are interested. So this was the setting crew, except for 2 of us. So there was 11 of us that year, plus Alex. Shu on the left here is from Singapore, and then Anna in the middle is from Finland, and then the girls on the right are the touchstone interns. So we had a variety of setters, and then from the US as well, me and Chelsea and Sydney and Allie, and that is the crew. So it's just a lot of women to work together. Here's the last year we did it at Dog Patch. So this is everybody, 13 of us, including there's 5 touchstone interns or something. So more and more women are getting into setting, and it's just really been a cool thing to be a part of. So how do you get started setting? So for those of you that are not route setters yet, and you want to route set, how do you get started? Well, you got to practice route reading in your gym so you understand movement a little bit. Because one of the hardest things is if you want to set and you have no place to start. So understanding moves a little bit helps because it gives you an idea of moves that you might want to set or try to set. It also gives you an idea of how people in the gym climb. So you have an idea like, okay, I would do this climb like this, and those people would do it like that. So you already have some basis for understanding how the movement you create might be received. You can make up problems on the wall by linking existing holds, or using a spray board in your gym if they have one, or an app like the Kilter board that we have, or a Moon board, or the Beastmaker board, where there's an app where you can make up problems, other people can climb them. And what you usually do is make a problem, save it as a draft, test it, and once it's perfect, then you save it as a climb in the database. And that makes it a good quality problem. And we've all seen a lot of these boards have bad quality problems where people did not do this testing process. Good climbs have been tested almost across the board. Occasionally get lucky, but it's just good to test it so you know. So you practice movement a little bit, you pay attention to the setters, you let the head setter know you're interested. If they don't know you're interested, I've had setters that work for a friend of mine in another gym chain reach out to me about trying to set, and he would be open to them setting at his gym chain where they already work as a desk person, but he doesn't know that they're interested. So make sure that the head setter knows you're interested, and then say, oh, are there any internships available or learning opportunities? Can I come watch you forerun? Can I come help you forerun? Can I wash holds? Washing holds is great because you start to learn what the holds are and you get more familiar with them. And also it helps the setting program. Can you sort bolts? Sorting bolts is great because it helps you understand what a bad bolt is and what a good bolt is. And you get more familiar with the tools. Can I help clean up the setting closet? I mean, it's not all fun work, but it's work that helps you understand what you would need to do the job and the tools that are used to do the job. So then when you do the job, you can be more effective at that. With forerunning, I would recommend if they do let you help, you can give your opinion, but it's also good to climb the stuff and then also just pay attention to what the setters are saying to each other and what they're thinking, and then what choices they make based on that. And then, especially if you think they were wrong, but even if you don't, watch climbers in the gym and see what happens. Were the setters right? Were they not right? Why? Stuff like that. So let people know you're interested, pay a lot of attention. If you're already a setter and you want more opportunities, it can be very difficult to find opportunities in route setting. And I mean, some of the pro opens I did early on, I got those jobs by literally showing up at the event and being available to help. Because if you're standing there and you're ready to help, a lot of times they'll let you start helping, even if it's just like getting holds or like whatever it is, listening to, bringing holds to another setter, handing them stuff, watching what they do and paying attention. Those are how you start to get involved. They start to know you. They see that you're interested. You learn things from that. If you aren't very competent, like you don't know how to do technical parts of the job, being upfront about that and then being willing to learn is super helpful. People don't have time to teach you how to set at a comp though. So if you show up at a comp and you don't know how to set at all, then you're going to be helpful in helping move things around, being a gopher, and forerunning. And then as you start to learn how to use the tools and things, you'll be more helpful with setting. And setting usually starts with co-setting, working with another setter, essentially interning under them or apprenticing. And then it can lead to you getting opportunities to go set your own problem. And I've had that happen with me, and I've got other setters into setting through doing that. So it certainly works. Setter trades with other gyms. So you have a program, there's a gym nearby that has a program. See if the gym owners are open to you guys trading a setter every now and then. It's a great way to get kind of fresh ideas and different methods into different gyms and help everybody improve. It raises all boats. Rising tide raises all boats. Insurance can be a problem when setting other facilities. So either having your own insurance, depending on your country, or sometimes the gym can either temporarily hire you or otherwise cover you under their insurance if you're setting there. So just we do a switch where then you're taking one of their setters. So there might be some logistics, but it is doable. Or maybe you have to volunteer, and that's doable as well. I'm not saying do a ton of work for free, but you may have to do some, and it's worth it for the experience that you'll get. Because if people are setting a comp, like they have a lot on their plate already, they may not be allowed to hire you, but they could probably use the help and would probably appreciate it. And then there's also clinics. So gyms will offer clinics where you can travel to. Individual setters can be talked into teaching clinics sometimes. There's in-house clinics, like my friend Kasha that sets in Metro Rock, who's the head setter. She teaches in-house clinics for her staff, and she also teaches public clinics sometimes. Sarah, my partner at the Routesetting Institute, she's traveling around the US just teaching clinics and setting right now. She just left the spot in November because she was ready to kind of do more of this sort of thing. And so she's been teaching these clinics. She's able to socially distance and do it. And it just brings new ideas. And she also learns new ideas from the gyms as she visits. And she's available. Like she's somebody that will travel internationally and do this stuff as well. And I have done some. I'm just so busy with Kilter, it's hard for me. So I've been trying to kind of funnel stuff towards Sarah because she's awesome. And then at your own gym. So you're setting your gym, you can't go anywhere else. You can ask your head setter to give you a challenge. So they give you a set of holds to set with that you wouldn't normally use. They pick a style of climb. They pick a wall for you to set on. They say, I want a V4 right here, and you've never set that before, or you've never set it with those type of holds. Ask another setter, not your head setter, just to, you pick holds for them and they pick holds for you. Set with another setter on a problem. Okay, let's try to do a new move today together. Let's try to set some dynos. Let's set an undercling bump, whatever it is. Come up with ways to challenge yourself. When you're setting day to day, like you do need to be efficient in a gym, but you can have some either days or periods of a day that are focused on learning and others that are focused on just getting kind of the meat and potatoes of the job done. Most head setters should be open to this because it's going to improve the overall of the gym. And I think people are understanding that more and more now. And then in-house clinics or mini clinics, like I said, Kasha's teaching clinics to her team. Your head setter may be open to doing that as well, or even having other setters teach something they've learned either from another gym or something they've seen on, YouTube, or that they want to practice to everybody else and work on it together. And then again, watching your customers is just key. Watching people climb was huge for me when I started climbing or I started setting. It's just huge. Other resources, comps and comp videos. There's tons on YouTube. There's a lot of analysis. I keep mentioning Udo just because he's the man, but there's also like a Canadian, Tyler Norton, who's I'm really blanking on the name of his program. Anyways, so there's that. There's Facebook groups. There's Routesetters Anonymous. There's female Routesetters, which I would love if all of you join. It's not hyperactive, but the idea is that if there are opportunities for women, we can share them there. Routesetters Anonymous is for everybody. There's also climbing hold groups, home climbing wall groups, problem swaps for home climbing wall setters, so they can practice, setting stuff for other people or letting people set stuff for them on their home wall. On Instagram, there's a lot of other setters you can follow. You can follow hold companies. And then the Routesetting Institute, we do contests sometimes where we have like a sequence or something for you to set, and then the winner will get a prize. We've been doing a drawing now for the winner from everybody that's eligible from the entries. But the idea is to help people try new ideas, basically, in setting. And then there's also organizations in our country and your countries that will offer some resources. So the Climbing Wall Association, Climbing Business Journal, for the US, USA Climbing, for the UK, Routesetting Association, IFSC. There's other organizations as well. They're trying to make information more available to Routesetters as far as like what you might need to do, some safety things to look for, classes you can take, certifications you can get, etc. There's also the Circuit World Cup magazine, which is a great way to kind of see what's going on in international routesetting with comps. There's Routesetter magazine, which is a great new magazine. It's annual. It's available online, or you can order it. There's 3 issues so far that's focused on the art and craft of routesetting and climbing gyms, like what we're looking at as a profession. It's becoming more professional. Okay, I have a whole nerdy thing after this about comps we can get into if we need to, but I'm going to stop and we can do questions and answers for a bit. I'm going to get off screen sharing, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. So if anybody would like to ask Jackie a question, if you could go to the reactions bit to the right-hand bottom of your screen and put up your hand, then we'll try and pull you out, and you can speak with your own voice and with your own face if you like as well.
Oh yeah, Tyler Norton, Plastic Weekly. Thank you. I just got stuck on Chalk Talk, which is a one I used to do World Cup analysis with, an old podcast.
Ooh,
okay.
We have a hand. It's Harry. I'm going to ask you to unmute, Harry.
Hi. I am 4'10", so quite short. And although I do enjoy the challenge of working out like how I would do a climb, which is often quite obviously different to people who are slightly taller than me, I often come across climbs in gyms where the distance between holds makes it virtually impossible for me to do a certain move, and it's often the final move. I was wondering how might you suggest I could help influence the setting in the gym, in like my regular gym, to better incorporate things to support smaller climbers, so like extra footholds and things.
Yeah, it sounds like they haven't been paying a lot of attention to that. If they're making, like, that's basically a common mistake, to just make the last move a big move, and it's worse because you fall off from up there and you don't want to be doing that. Yeah, so it sounds like the setting team needs to look at, well, first of all, do you guys have a youth team at your gym? Most gyms do, right? You don't?
No.
Buddy, I'm sorry. Youth teams are great because the coaches will push for climbs that are more accessible for shorter climbers when there's an active youth team in the gym. Also, the setters will watch the kids climb and see more people climb that are shorter, so that helps. I mean, the number one thing for small climbers is always adding extra feet. Separate but equal feet can help, but if the handles are just too far away, I mean, it's not that hard to set, or it is hard, but you get used to it, to set essentially a climb within a climb, where I can add holds that you could use on any climb that I set, and it's not going to change the experience for Rebecca, who's a bit taller than you, for example, if she's climbing it. So they need to learn to do that, and I think this is a really common problem for women. Somebody else is commenting this already. At the spot, I hired a short woman, but she had kind of long arms and she was really strong on her arms. So she would set reachy stuff because she could just jump and hold stuff like this. And I was just like, this isn't helping. I'm 5'10", so I'm not super helpful personally, but we have so many strong kids in Boulder that I've set for short people a lot. And what I try to do is set a problem within a problem. And so, I mean, the best thing to do is approach either the head setter or the route setters, which is, I know, scary, but it shouldn't be. They're just idiots like the rest of us. Approach them and say, guys, I keep falling off the top of the wall. I don't want to be doing that. Can you guys please add even some like slightly smaller but still grade appropriate holds in between, so I have an option? Because the other thing is this. Climbing in a gym, if you're just there to climb, you're climbing for yourself, right? You're training or whatever. And so there's nobody that's going to give you a free t-shirt if you do the blue climb without using an extra foothold, you know? So you can modify what's available to you. If you can't get them to listen to you, you may have to modify what's available to you with your own, using your own rules, because what they're doing is not fair to you. And that's completely okay. It's not your fault that they're setting huge moves at the top of the wall consistently. So as a user, if you reach out to them and they're not receptive, then you have to find other ways. If that's the only gym option for you to climb in, they don't want to let you help route set. You have to find ways to make that usable for you. And so that's going to be changing the rules, whether it's adding holds that are like already on the wall on other climbs, or just deciding, you know what, my climbs end at, 12 feet because I'm not going to dyno to 15. That's totally okay. And so giving yourself permission to like use that tool for what it is for you, which is a tool. Because they're the route setters doesn't mean they're right. And that's what I was saying earlier about learning to trust your setters and setters getting their clients to trust them. If the setting crew is really involved in the gym and wants people to have a good experience regardless of their size, they're going to pay attention to their customers who are having these issues and account for them. Like if you were in my gym, I would know you and I would know that you were in my gym and I would think about you when we were setting climbs in your challenge, especially in your challenge range, but even in your warm-up range that had things that I thought were too big for you. That's what they should be doing. And so it sounds like they probably need to work on that. And if they aren't going to, then you have to do what you can to work around it for now. But I would try to make your voice heard as politely as possible. Just like, hey guys, do you want to watch me climb the ends of these boulders? I keep falling on these last moves. Can you tell me why I'm falling off these moves? Like, I don't know why I'm falling off these moves. I don't get it. I keep falling at the top. Because they should be able to put that together of like, oh, she's too short and this is stupid, and hopefully they can. And if they can't, hopefully they're open to continuing to learn. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. It's really frustrating.
I think they're starting to change, because one of the last sets they did, I saw the route setters at the end and they were like, oh yeah, we were talking about you during the day today. So I think they're starting to think about it now. Yes,
positive reinforcement. Make them cookies, maybe, which you shouldn't have to, but it will probably work. Yeah. And get them to watch. I mean, we had a guy at my old gym who insisted that we were bad route setters, and he wanted to route set, and he was going to do a good job. And we finally let this guy set a route. And he set a vertical top rope route, and he set like 3-finger, terrible foot crimps, and he set them his reach apart. And he was like 6'2" with a +2. And so we let him set it, and then we made him watch as this woman named Elena Vichnikova, who was a Russian competitor who lived in the US. She's just like the most elegant climber you've ever seen. We made him watch with his mouth closed as she tried to climb his good route. And she wasn't even halfway up the wall before he was like, oh, I see. He just didn't get it. And then he got it. Even though he climbed near her, it just didn't go in, and then it did. So those guys, it's good to hear they're talking about you. Having you, I mean, I don't know if they would let you come forward or if you're even available, but being able to go in and try to help them test the climb so they can work on that, if they're willing to do that, would be amazing. It would help the gym overall. I mean, you're not the only short person in that gym. No, you might be the only one who cares about trying to fix it. So.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Yeah, everybody stand up for yourselves, politely, but stand up for yourselves.
We've got a couple of questions in the chat, Jackie. One from Rosario about certifications. How important are they?
Oh man, Rosario, what country are you in?
I live in London, but I'm from Mexico.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, is it necessary? Because I'm interested in starting to be. I mean, it's just a worm right now in my head. So cool. I'm just wondering how to start. Like, I mean, you're starting to say that to approach the route setters at my gym, but then what should I be doing? Like, should I be trying to get the chartership or some kind of that kind of stuff? Or what's
yeah, I mean, do you have a different job that takes your time during the day, so you're not like available? Yeah, I mean, I would start with I I would definitely talk to them and just say, hey, I have this job. I don't have, I can't come during the day. I would like to, I'm interested in route setting. Is there anything I can do? Or can I come watch holds in the evenings? Because again, like it's just doing a crappy job for free kind of, but it helps you learn the holds. Or can I come watch you guys forerun if you're free in the afternoon? You have a lot of gyms to choose from in London. So there's a chance that if you were to visit multiple of those gyms, you might reach somebody who was at least had some ideas for how you could try to start setting. If you were in Mexico, which it seems like you're just living in London, but they're in Mexico, they're actually working. We did a talk a couple months ago. They're working on improving setting across a bunch of the gyms there. It's really cool. Like they're kind of banding together and they have like an organization now that they're working towards. But yeah, so in London, the thing is in the UK, people often have like traveling route setters that go between gyms. They don't just work at one gym, and they have certifications for like either work at height if they're doing rope work, which if you are doing rope work in the UK, I think you have to have work at height certification. In the US, you don't have to have that, although we're trying to get people to get it. So there's like those kind of certifications that I think are pretty important. And then there's like, especially if you're just bouldering setting, you don't necessarily have, there is not an established certification system in the world for commercial route setting, which is something we're working on, but it is not there yet. There are some competition certification systems, like USA Climbing has one, and probably other organizations have them, and IFSC has one, but they don't give you like the skills that we're talking about that would really get people into route setting more. They're more of like high-end competition setting, and they're pretty hard to get into because there's more people who want to do them than there is space for those people to work. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question very well. I think it's kind of two things. It's ropes access is one thing, and bouldering setting is something else. And bouldering setting is a good place to start because you don't have to have all the ropes access skills and equipment and certifications to do it. You may have to take a ladder course or a tool course or something. But I would visit, if I were you, I would visit the gyms around London, big and small walls, and find out if there's any room. Try to talk to the setters. Find out if there's any room for learning, if they're open to doing some kind of internship program, if they've ever thought about having a clinic. Like ask, maybe they hadn't thought about an internship program or a public clinic, but maybe they would consider it if they knew there was interest. So I would say visit people and ask. And I know like at the castle, I think that they generally hire like Ned and whatnot to come down from Sheffield to set, but I know that they're pretty progressive in general at trying to kind of raise the level. And so I would also check in with them and see if they have a program or if they were trying to make a program and start there.
That's great. Thank you, Jackie.
A shout out as well to Creative Climbing, which is Evie Crachelier and Emma Twyford have got a climbing setting workshop series that was working when we still had climbing walls open.
Hello. I think I've been route setting for about a year within a bouldering wall, and I've had some amazingly positive experiences route setting. So I don't want to start on a downer. But then I also realized that a lot of the things that you've been talking about are like, I feel like my responsibility as a female setter is often to voice a lot of things that are being overlooked within route setting. And as a consequence, sometimes I feel like, especially the forerunning process can be quite adversarial. And I just wondered if that was something that you felt that you'd experienced within your time route setting, and if you had any tips for staying upbeat sometimes when you feel like you are just hammering away at representing that voice that's not being represented.
Yeah, it's exhausting. I had some slides I deleted from my original talk and other talks where I pretty much am like, I talk about that because it's exhausting. You're never cool. You're never the strongest. You're always kind of the squeaky wheel. They don't want to deal with it. They think it's fine. They think people are going to have a fine time. They think you're overdoing it. All you can do to try to keep yourself positive is remember that like there's 80 or 90 women in this talk, or mostly women. You're the voice of this half of the community of your climbing gym, basically. And you're probably the only one who's really paying as much attention to them as you should be. And like for the gym owner, that's half their member base. That's half of their income, is those people that you alone or potentially are standing up for. So even though it may feel like, whether those half the people are just the shorter climbers and the more technical climbers and not all just women, but like you're doing good work and it sucks sometimes. Like something that helped me, I'm just kind of different than a lot of women, I guess, but also something that helped me was we used to do these surveys at the gym where we did like route setter, people voted for their favorite setters. And even though you set a climb and you all kind of tweak it, it's kind of mostly the climb that you set. And so I work with like, 6 young, strong boys, some of whom are still famous climbers to this day during this period I'm speaking about. And then they did a survey. Who's the best route setter? Who's your favorite route setter? For all your customers, the spot. Again, bouldering gym, strong climbers in Boulder. Who's the best route setter? Who's your favorite route setter? I would win those things by I would get 80% of the vote, and the remaining 6 boys on the team would get the other 20 combined. Or like we had another woman, JJ, who the guys didn't really respect because she was not that strong. She hadn't been climbing seriously for a super long time. Her problems seemed weird to them. They weren't that interested in the climb she was setting. I would get 60%, she'd get 30%, and they would still share the remaining 10%. Like it was just the customers appreciated what we were doing. And so stuff like that is really helpful because the loud people tend to be the stronger, more experienced climbers in the gym in terms of like saying what they want and establishing the social hierarchy in the gym. And a lot of times setters are part of that. And there's a lot of really great male setters and a lot of them don't ever mean to do this stuff, but it just happens that setters defer to the stronger climber because they're better. Climbers and setters tend to. And our job is to not do that because we're representing people that didn't used to feel like they could come into climbing gyms or didn't feel like they could come into climbing gyms and find stuff to climb, and people that are not comfortable learning to climb by doing super sandbag V0s. This isn't Yosemite in the 60s and 70s. Like we're not trying to give people a bad time. We're trying to help people have fun, do a workout, learn stuff so they can progress. And so that requires constant vigilance, which means that unfortunately, unless you get more women on your team or some of the men on your team are doing more conscientious thought, it means that you're always going to be in this position. So the best thing I think you could do is find other women to set with at least sometimes, whether it's like coming to clinics, if there's any women's only events, if you have any control at all to try to organize a women's only event in your gym or clinic where you can bring a woman in to help set a comp, like Katie from Leeds, I think she owns a gym up there. She did the women's clinic at the symposium in 2016, but she's super experienced. She just kind of came for fun. She'd be great if she's available. Hire her to come down and do a women's clinic and comp at your gym or something if your owners are open to that. Stuff like that, because it'll reinforce what you already know, which is what you're doing is right. It's just exhausting sometimes.
That's a great idea. I'll definitely put that forward. But yeah, that's great. It's just, I think it does really help, like being part of the seminar or like hearing that that's a shared experience actually helps like a tremendous amount, like just knowing that it's not just like you say, just your like squeaky wheel constantly like grinding away. But yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, just keep at it. It's good. And like I said in the talk, like it's good to check yourself as well. Like if you're arguing that no one's gonna be able to do this move and they say it's fine and they leave it and you're mad about it, stay at the gym for 3 hours and watch customers climb it, especially the first day it was set, so it's new to people, and just see what they do and find out if you were right or not, because that'll help. I mean, even if you never get to really point it out to them or they don't get it, it'll help you reinforce, it'll either help you reinforce that you were right or it'll help you learn why you were wrong and then grow from that. So it's just like, yeah, you have to rely on yourself and hopefully connect with some of the women in this group and, have those. Like in the US, the women that I know that are like higher end setters, we all text each other regularly and stuff, because like it's the same problems, different day.
Awesome, thank you. And the Katie that Jackie was talking about is Katie Mundy, or also known as Katie Varian, who's based at Eden Rock in Carlisle. Somebody who also does a lot of setting for us at WCS is Suze Dudink, based at Climb Newcastle, who's also part of our talk series. We'll ask you to unmute for your question.
Hi, so I've been setting 4 years, almost 5 years at the same centre, and I've wanted to break out into the sort of freelance route setting, and my centre's quite close-minded, and when I've talked about wanting to go elsewhere, they were like, "Oh, we might not be able to offer you the work if you go and set elsewhere because it's competition, they don't want me to go set there. I'm not quite sure how to break out into that, especially at a time like this.
Yeah, that's a pretty common thing. Certainly, like living in Boulder, where I live, there's multiple gym chains, and at different times we were allowed to set at multiple gym chains or not. So, like there was a period of time where I set for the Boulder Rock Club and set routes like once a week, just because I like setting routes, and I set at the spot a couple days a week because the spot wasn't able to offer me full-time work at the time. I wasn't a head setter, and so I appealed to the logic of it's a different type of setting and you can't offer me full-time work and this is what I do. And that kind of worked. Applying you may not be able to get around it and still work where you work, but you might. And so to try to get around it, you can try, explaining to them that maybe offer a setter trade. So we get some of their setters here too, or maybe work around the idea that it will improve your setting and increase the overall quality of setting at the facility at their gym that you work at by you getting more exposure to other gyms. You can, so when I first started traveling to do more comps and stuff, my boss at the spot, Dan, and then when Sarah was doing it after, I kind of sat down and talked with him and was like, hey, I want to do this. I know I'm going to go set for these other events, but I think it's a really good opportunity to raise the spot as well because I'm the head setter of the spot, and now I'm going to go to these other events, so that's good for the spot. And he luckily appreciated that and agreed with it and was supportive of me and then Sarah doing that stuff. Not everybody's going to be, unfortunately, but I would try some different arguments in terms of how you doing work at another facility could help improve your work and the quality of the facility you're at. And also maybe look into reaching out to other contacts because there's a lot of gyms that want female setters. So you have a fair amount of experience already. You may just have to become a contract setter. Have you tried talking to Nate? Do you know Nate at the Routesetting Association?
No, I haven't, but I will.
Somebody like that. He just contract sets. Something like that might be a better fit, especially in England where you can essentially drive across the country in a matter of half a day. If you're interested in doing that stuff, I think you should pursue it because if you don't have an environment that you can grow and learn in and you want to grow and learn, try to, because there's a lot that people contact me looking for female setters. How do I get a female setter? Where can I hire a female setter? I want somebody for this comp. I want somebody at full time. There's a ton of gyms in the US that want to hire female setters and head setters. Women tend to make very good head route setters because we are not ever the strongest climber on the setting team, generally. And so we approach it a little differently. And part of that is we've been talking about empathy for the whole customer base and the big picture. And also we can be a side of the hierarchy of strength that happens generally will happen with a group of setting boys. So you may be in a very good position to continue learning management skills and be somebody that can come in and set and consult or set and help help them make their routesetting program better, or move to the US and work at a gym in Oklahoma for a year, but run the whole thing. Pursue the opportunities that you see. It's not worth sitting in a gym that's not letting you grow right now.
Yeah.
I think there's plenty of people that want female setters. And it's hard because you're always the bottom voice just by being a woman. But there's a lot of people that are trying to change that and are very open-minded. So and then if there's skills you don't have that you want to have so you feel confident doing that, try to get those skills first. So if you want to know how to fix a T-nut from behind the wall and you haven't done that before, try to get those skills. If there's ropes access certifications you need, try to get those skills. Do the stuff to make you competent so when you show up, you represent yourself the way that you want to. And if you have stuff to learn, find somebody you can learn from.
Cool, thank you very much.
I think Nate's company actually runs those rope access courses as well and that kind of training too. Our next question is Roz, who is a female head setter at a gym.
Great.
Hey, yeah. So I feel like based on what you've been talking about today, I feel like the UK is pretty behind with the whole route setting as a profession. I think it's slowly getting better, but predominantly in London. Any recommendations on how we could approach gym owners to be a little bit more modern in their thinking about route setting and about getting new people into it who they might not necessarily think about initially?
Yeah, I think a very distilled version of the talk I just gave, distilled down to gyms, climbing gyms they need members. They need a member base to be successful. To have a member base, they need to serve that member base so people can come try climbing, feel like they can try it, have a good time, want to come back, and then see progression and get their needs met by the gym so they will continue coming back. So you're basically creating a product for customers at this point. So if you look at the percentage of people in climbing gyms that are women, it's getting closer to 50%. Gyms that don't have that yet certainly say they want more customers and they want more women. So this is something that's wanted by gym owners. And so approaching them with, here's what this environment looks like. Gym owners are adding more female setters to get more variety, to create a better product for their customer base, which includes a lot of women. A lot of gym owners have reached out to me, you can say even, and said that they don't know how to get these women involved in setting. Some of the ways you can do that are by having these clinics or these internships. I can come teach a clinic. Ella can come down and teach a clinic, whatever. And to get women to try it, because when we do Women Up, we do 2 clinics. We do one for staff of the gym that want to try setting, and some of those women actually came back as setters the next year. And we do one for the public. So in both places, you're tapping into your communities of people that might want to become route setters. Gym owners should see the value in that for helping them make more money in the long term and having a healthy facility, which is what they want. They want a healthy climbing community, a healthy facility. And so we're a huge part of that. And the more information we can give them about how they can do that, the happier they're going to be. So if you can show up and say, hey, whatever, these stats show that 40% of your customers are women by this point. We want to help get more people into the gym, more women, and have people have more fun. Having female setters helps do that. If you're interested in doing that, we would love to host a clinic at your gym. Again, I'm just using Ella as an example. Ella's going to come down and help teach it. I'm going to help teach it. We could take up to 10 women. It's, and you can do a pricing structure that doesn't hurt them so much, where it's like, look, I need $500 or whatever, but you can charge 100 or you can charge 50, or maybe you can be free for your members. You can decide what kind of pricing structure you want to do if you do want to charge for it. And if so, give them a way they can pass that cost on to the people taking the clinic, where it's not unaffordable. Maybe it's 10 pounds for them or 20 pounds for the customer, and it's a half an hour or it's an hour. I'd probably do at least an hour. If you're gonna do a full day, it's not unreasonable to charge $150 or $200 US. And other gyms will send their setters. But anyways, you can create a structure. If you can hand them something that they can implement easily, a lot of them will go for it. And that's what Sarah has been doing. She'll reach out and say, hey, here's a structure. Here's how you guys can pay for it, basically, just to cover me being able to come there and do this day of teaching. And I can take up to 20 women or 20 people or whatever. So you can create these opportunities. I think as somebody who now runs my own business, you're really busy when you're running a business and you don't always have time to develop new ideas. But if somebody comes to you with a good idea that's packaged in a way that you can easily implement, a lot of times you're on board. And in this case, people know they need more female setters and that there are more women in the gym that need to be served. People want to retain their customers as members. So I think that handing them something that can help them do that should be a slam dunk.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Let's do this, Rose. We kind of made this plan last year when we were at Depot Birmingham, so let's make it happen.
Let's do it. I'm down.
And we'll get Jackie over when she's on her way to Bulgaria, right?
Yeah, I'd like to come again. I want to go to Sweden too. They want us to come over, but we just haven't had time, and now we can't go anywhere. So
super cool. Patty has got her hand up.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, so yeah, I just wanted to actually add something like an experience that I have, because I've been sitting for around 2.5 years in a pretty big climbing gym in Germany. And one of the things that's a little bothering me is that I'm the only female setter in the whole gym, and there is this expectation of me that I should always be setting for women. Like in a certain style, or even when I'm setting a harder boulder, like the hardest grade in the gym, I'm told by the gym owner that even in a quite attacking mode, that why are you setting it so hard that other women can't send it? While I think of myself as not just a female setter, but just a setter who wants to eventually set for men too. And I want to be able to set maybe one day a finals for like a men's competition. And I really dislike how I'm being looked at as like I'm only there because I'm a woman, you know. And the guys there are allowed to set for women, for men, for kids, and I'm only there to set for women. It's like I'm being like considered as a half a setter kind of a thing.
Right. That's part of the reason for like my Women Up, I guess we only had female competitors, but there's another one called Impact they did where they set for men and women. Setting comp finals for the male and female categories is very satisfying, and I definitely was not at all. Yeah, you're completely right, and I wasn't trying to say if you're the presentation I just gave wasn't trying to pigeonhole women into only setting for women at all, but that's a really solid point. Ideally, the problems that you set that have your own take on it, whatever that is, will still just automatically be different by the nature of you setting them instead of a taller man, for example. And so that'll help female and male setters improve at those skills that you're introducing. So it sounds like the gym owner is not very open-minded or doesn't have a very clear view of what your purpose is at the gym. And I don't know if you can get more women in, that would probably help. It also, I mean, part of your job on the crew is not just to set for women, but you represent women. So when you're forerunning, they can see how you perform in the climb and adjust their climbs. And in the same way, you know those guys, you work with those guys regularly. So watching them climb something that you've set, you should be able to kind of empathize with and interpret how they're acting and change moves that you maybe can't even do, but that they'll perform on the way that you want them to perform. And that is, I mean, I'm getting excited now. That's like one of the most exciting things about route setting. And it's a shame if you haven't been able to experience that yet, but you definitely have the right to, and you're 100% correct. I mean,
No, I definitely, I have experienced that a lot with forerunning.
Thank you for bringing that up because it's a really good point. And so look, here's the good news for all of you guys, especially in countries that have fewer and fewer women in climbing than we have in the US. 5 years ago in the US and 6 years and 7 years ago, I mean, again, the first year I did Women Up in 2017, the people I hired for that were the only other female setters I knew, and then again an intern that I didn't know but had been to some clinics. That was five other people or 6 other people. Again, second year there was 11. The next year there was 13. In between that, Sarah and I went and taught a clinic in Kentucky, and we ended up with, I met like 20 more female setters. Now there's so many female setters in the US, I can't even count them. And that's just been the last 4 or 5 years. So once it's changing, which it sounds like it's starting to change in Europe and the UK, it starts changing more and more rapidly. So don't despair, because you're just, leading is tiring. Do you know Katty Lehman?
No.
She's a German climber, and she's a route setter. She and I did a thing at ISPO last summer in 2019. She's into setting too. She might be somebody that's worth trying to hook up with.
I never heard of that name before. Katty?
Oh, she climbed a V15 like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, quietly.
Maybe I know that more like an athlete than a setter.
Oh, she is an athlete, but she's been setting. She's been getting into setting, and maybe somebody that you guys could like. Again, I recommend everybody try to find other women to keep in touch with, your setters, to commiserate with, to talk to have ideas with, to work on improving with, because it makes a big difference when you're sitting there all alone being like really frustrated. And also your gym should be hiring more female setters if possible. I mean, you can say as politely as possible, I don't want to be a token woman who only sets for women. I see my job as a setting for everybody, the same as the men's are. And I would like to, and maybe that's the challenge. Maybe that's the intergroup challenge when you guys do an in-house clinic with your own crew, where your job is to set the thuggy V8, and one of the guys' jobs is to set the delicate V5 or whatever you usually get stuck doing. So now you're 100% right, though. You shouldn't feel like you have to do that. So keep fighting the good fight, I guess.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think we could probably go on all night, and Jackie is such a font of wisdom that she could answer lots and lots and lots of questions forever. I think we probably need to let people go. Jackie, this is clearly a conversation that needs to continue, and there's a load of psych here actually to start taking on these issues and work together on them. Where's the best place for us to join together in a digital space to be able to keep having this conversation?
I mean, I think we could make the female route setters group on Facebook. We could utilize it more because the Route Setters Anonymous group gets more use, which is fine. But for the women's conversation, I think the female group would be a good place if we started using it. It could, you know, the other group has shown that it's a good place. I know everyone's not on Facebook, but it's just a really easy way to keep stuff in one place and organized, kind of. Because I don't have like any other kind of really good forum to recommend. And then just reaching out, like putting, if you're in that group and you want to have a clinic or you want to have someone come teach a clinic or you want to go, you know, just putting resources there for each other and keeping in touch with each other and supporting each other, because we have to support each other to make this more and more normalized. And again, it's getting way better in the US, but I know it's not everywhere yet. And so the more normal we can make it, the better.
Amazing.
Video chat rooms and Facebook groups. Thank you, Chris. So yeah, we could do group chats in that if we want to. We could have future Zoom conversations where we all just kind of vent and talk about strategy.
Well, we'll definitely send the link around to that female route setters group to everybody who's been on this talk, and then maybe pick it up there and see what we can build together. But it's something WCS are definitely keen to promote in the UK. And it was amazing to hear in your slideshow, Jackie, that we were the first to gather that many women route setting in one room together. So yeah, the US may be ahead now, but we started it with you.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of anything like that before that. So I think that's, as far as I know, that's completely accurate. And yeah, it was awesome.
Awesome. Well, we are now in the point where I don't know how to unpin things to get Emma back on the screen, but I can hear her there. So we just really want to thank you,
Hi, Emma.
Jackie, so much on behalf of everybody here. It's been so amazing to hear your wisdom and that you've been so candid and got so much experience to build to this. And at WCS, we're determined to connect, develop, and inspire women, and I think you've ticked all three of those. So let's take this good work onwards. Let's keep talking together about this.
Thanks, Adidas. Thanks, 510, helping us get this sorted. Yeah, and thanks to everyone who has come to this Zoom, because I think we had 85 participants. Absolutely fantastic. Like, that's amazing. Yeah, really, really chuffed. It's brilliant to have so many people connected around this subject. So important.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. It was really fun. And it's great to see so many women are interested, because again, like the number of women who came to this who have reported that they actually are route setting at this point is great. It's just we're growing exponentially, which is really awesome, inspiring, and wonderful. So everybody keep it up and keep bringing other women with you and encouraging them.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Jackie, and take care, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Jackie.
Thanks, guys. Girls.
Bye.
Bye.